Hello and welcome to the Game Design Archive with Edward and Ludwig.
Hello.
Hello. Today we're gonna talk about clunky games and why they are deep. Go, Ludwig.
Yes. So, I guess nowadays there seems to be a lot of focus in like game design circles or whatever you want to call it on unclunky games, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, if you look at like action games, for example, there's a lot of focus on like really smooth movement and like parry timings and epic animations and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of get what I'm saying.
Reaction.
And yeah, exactly.
Action.
And I guess what I want to have said today is that this is not necessarily good.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for this is because I think a lot of people confuse depth for clunkiness. So now let me explain. I'll take Getting Over It as an example because that it's a very good game and it's a game that's like super hard when you first get into it and like feels super weird when you first get into it and when you first play it. But then as you learn it, it actually becomes like second nature or whatever you want to call it, where it's like, because if you haven't played Getting Over It, right, it's like you're this guy who's like swinging his hammer around him and you need to do like weird platforming stuff. So like one of the first things that happens is that there's like a big tree that you need to climb and it's like super hard to climb. And so as you're new at the game, you're kind of figuring out how everything works, right? And like the movement feels, I wouldn't say it feels bad, right? But it feels like you're not in control, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people kind of feel that feeling of like I'm not in control. I like, and they say, okay, this game is clunky, it sucks, whatever. Alt F4. But kind of what I want to bring to attention, I guess, is that no, the reason why it feels like you're not in control is because the movement is deep and you don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yes. It is very similar to the I guess the frustration. We had an episode where we discussed frustration, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of similar to frustrating mechanics, where maybe even overlapping a bit actually, but where this feeling of I couldn't do anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
But not in terms of controls. In that case, it's more like, oh, you played a game and you got cornered, and in that moment you couldn't do anything, right? And so how I would describe these clunky mechanics is, I guess the Getting Over It is a bit different. That's more unique, but a lot of them are just not instant, I guess is the word. Sort of like how you can be cornered, right?
Yeah.
Where you can't, when you've made the decision, you are screwed.
Yeah.
Or something like that, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Getting Over It is a bit in that way, right? Because
you like lose all the progress when you fall down.
You need like momentum and stuff to move around.
Yeah, that's true. There's like a few big jumps where you need to like angle yourself correctly and then give yourself like a real speed boost or whatever.
Yeah.
And like learning how to do that actually takes a few tries, right? It's not like in many modern games, perhaps I'm being a bit mean to modern games, where it's like, especially like games with focused on like platforming and movement, where it's like the platforming and movement is actually super easy, and so the game ends up like being kind of boring. And I think Getting Over It is like the opposite of that, where like the platforming and movement is kind of hard, so it's like you need to actually learn it before you can do this stuff, I guess.
Yeah, because I feel like I mean, I haven't spent hundreds and hundreds of hours in it, right? But I feel like the movement isn't actually that hard.
No, well, it's
you can play that game in maybe 10 hours or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember how long it took for me. And sure, you're not doing every jump every time, but if you had a couple of 100 hours, right, it would be pretty straightforward, I think.
Yeah,
so
and
it
that's
is
sort
very, it's not. I guess that's part of the point, that it's not necessarily hard, right? It's just different, and so it's weird.
Yeah, I guess the best way to put it is that the movement is deep, right? Because, you know, you're talking about game length, right? I've beaten like Getting Over It a few times, right? And the first time I beat it, it took me like 5 hours, and the second time I beat it, it took me 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, you're right when you say that the movement isn't very hard, right? Because, you know, it took me 15 minutes to beat a 5-hour game.
I mean, it's harder than holding forward in like Assassin's
Creed.
Yeah,
absolutely. Right? But what it is that it's deep, right? Because it took me 5 hours to learn the movement before I could finish the game in 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people like have this initial phase where they're struggling, and then they say, okay, this game is clunky, but like it's actually just deep. It's not clunky, right? Because if I went back and played Getting Over It now, like I'd probably like have to play a bit to relearn it, right? Because I haven't played it in a long time and I've forgotten a bit of stuff. But once I had relearned it, Getting Over It doesn't feel clunky to me. It feels nice. Like the movement actually feels nice and good, and I feel like I'm in control. And the reason for that is because I have learned the movement, right?
Yeah. I
and that's sort of
we
like
need
the big
a distinction
difference
here to make it clear for the listeners, which is that there is two kinds of clunkiness in this case. There might be more, but like in this case, there's two. There is the clunkiness of unintuitiveness, right? Which is what you're describing with Getting Over It, which is the way you control your character feels unintuitive.
Yeah.
And then you build a game around that. That's what that game is, right? But you also have the other side, which is they are not responsive, I guess is the right word, or they are not they're not instant, I guess. I don't know what way to describe it, but they're not necessarily hard to pull off, right? So that would be, for example, a jump you can't control in the air. That's not hard at all, actually. That's very easy to understand. But to a lot of people, it feels clunky, in quotation marks, because it's when you've jumped, you can't change your mind, right? And a lot of modern mechanics are like that, where they try to remove that as much as possible.
Yeah,
which removes depth.
Yeah, and like to be extra clear, right? The second kind of clunkiness, I don't remember what you call it, but like that isn't bad, right?
No,
it's
none
like,
of them are bad.
Yeah, exactly. It's
but...
more like, because I think the perfect example of that, like, because you mentioned the fixed jump is Vulgar the Viking, right? Where it's, if you press the jump button, you've committed to the jump, and like the arc that you had when you started the jump is the arc you're gonna have through the whole jump, and if you fucked up, then you'll just die or whatever. And I think a lot of people once again say that feels bad, right? But I guess how to say this, like, that isn't the point. Like, the point is that the jump is fixed, right? It's like a commitment thing. You kind of get what I'm saying, where it's like, because one thing the game does, right, is they have like places where you need to jump, and then after you've jumped, there'll be like enemies that come in from the side and like fuck you up, right? And so there's like a gameplay element there where before you jump, you need to be sure that it's safe to jump and stuff like that, which you don't get in a game where you can just like float around in the air freely and like turn 50 times in a jump, right? Because like... yeah, because you can just control everything, right? So there's no like commitment to it. So yeah, I just wanted to make clear, like, the second kind of jankiness, like unresponsiveness, isn't bad either, right? Because there could be a point to the unresponsiveness.
I also see that a lot in remakes. A lot of older games have the second kind of clunkiness, where mechanics are not instant. And most people, I shouldn't say most, most probably, argue that, well, that's because of the time or whatever, right? That doesn't add anything, and so they changed it in the remakes.
Yeah.
And so in some cases, like the Resident Evil stuff, it's completely different. I don't know how anyone can, like, I don't play Resident Evil and I haven't played the old ones, but just looking at something like Resident Evil 4, the old one versus the remake, how someone can even consider those two the same game is beyond me, because they're not. It's a completely different game, right?
Yeah, isn't the remake, isn't that like just a generic third-person
game?
Yeah,
it's like a generic Uncharted style game, right?
Yeah.
And the old one is, slightly tank control-y shooter thingy, right?
Yeah.
Which is way more interesting because it's, it's got trade-offs in its mechanics.
Yeah.
Or like the Demon's Souls remake, right? People don't talk about this a lot, but in the Demon's Souls remake they changed the rolling, so it's way easier to roll because you have so the old one works like Dark Souls 1, which is you have 4 directional rolling, but the remake works like the newer games, which I'm not sure if it's 8 or if it's any. I think it might be any direction, but the point is you can obviously abuse that a lot because, for example, backstabs, right? You can roll if you can only roll sideways or forwards, like in the old one, then it's harder to get around them, and the movesets of the enemies are built around the fact that you can't, if you can roll diagonally towards them, then you can get to their back faster. So it's super easy to backstab stuff in the remaster. I mean, it might have been easy in the old one as well, right? But
yeah,
the point is it's very strange in that case to me, because that game is, I mean, people are gonna get angry for this, but it's kind of similar, right? It's one of the more similar remakes in my opinion compared to other remakes to the original. But then that mechanic change is a bit strange, right?
Yeah.
Something it feels better. Which, I mean, I don't know. To me, I don't understand that quite. Maybe because I played some of the older games beforehand. Into Dark Souls, I mean, because a lot of people say that, oh, Dark Souls feels so clunky because you can't roll in any direction. But I don't know. I don't have an issue with that, really. I don't know. And maybe that's sort of the point here, that it's not clunky at all. It's actually just how the game works, and you get used to it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it goes back to like what we mentioned in every other episode or whatever, where it's like it seems like a lot of people say that limitations are bad, but limitations are actually like what makes the game interesting, right? It's like the stuff that you can't do is the stuff that that makes the game challenging in a way. And so if you can't roll in every direction, then like that the roll becomes more interesting, right? Because there's more like, I guess people would say, I don't know if this is true, but I guess people would argue like, oh, being able to roll in every direction is more interesting because you have more choices, right? You have more control of your character. But like, actually, the fact that you have fewer choices is interesting because like you can't abuse it, as you said, right? It's harder to get around things. It's like the movement is more limited, right? So you need to be more careful about your movement, I guess. Because what happens when you have an omnidirectional roll is that you can just roll everywhere, right? And
the thing is, you can
it's way easier.
Do it in Dark Souls because you can just not lock on, right?
Okay, yeah.
So I don't know.
Oh, you can only roll like relative to the lock?
Yeah, or I mean, if you turn your camera, you can rotate in any direction, right?
Okay, yeah.
So if you like, the issue is when you're locked on, where the directions are sideways and forwards and backwards.
That sounds like it's even more interesting, right? Because then it becomes a skill element where it's a skilled player can, because a noob,
I mean, they still do in the newer ones.
Yeah,
so it doesn't really matter. But
like, because from my understanding, like skilled Dark Souls players usually don't play with lock on, right?
Yeah, it depends.
And so true. But then there's like a skill element of like, okay, you can roll in any direction you want to if you unlock and control the camera yourself, right? And so all of a sudden there's like even more gameplay depth there than if you could just roll in every direction.
Yeah, there's also Bloodborne, which changes the roll to a dash when you lock on. So it's there you need to play around that a bit because the dash is faster than the roll, so stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, did you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
No, yeah. So I think it's good that you brought up Dark Souls, because there is one sort of story, I guess, that I always find super funny about Dark Souls, and that's I don't remember which like gaming magazine or whatever it was, but I think it was IGN. When that game released, like Dark Souls, when Dark Souls released, it got really, really bad reviews. I think it was from IGN. I'm just gonna say IGN because I assume it is IGN because they aren't real gamers. And they like complained about the game being super clunky and super shitty and buggy and everything felt terrible and it was frustrating, whatever, you know, all the bad words. And then like a few years later they remastered, and I think the original score for the review was like between 4 and 6 or whatever, like not very good. But then a few years later, after Dark Souls became super popular, they remastered their review and gave it like a 9 out of 10 or something. And they were like, oh yeah, this is the most amazing game ever. The legacy is amazing. This changed the gaming forever, whatever. And I think it's so funny because that's like very obviously a case of the IGN reviewer playing the game, not understanding it, and saying that it's bad, and then coming back a few years later after everyone said it was good and like revising the review, right? And the reason I think this example is so funny is because, so relevant to this today's topic, I guess, is because, what I just said. It's like whoever reviewed that game played it and didn't understand it, and so they said, wow, this is clunky and it sucks. And then like once they came back and actually did understand it, they went, oh yeah, this is a masterpiece. Now also,
I don't think they went back. I think it was a different
probably. But like also there's the factor of like IGN probably remastered the review because they like didn't want criticism from people, so they probably don't really enjoy the game that much anyways, right? But like they you get what I'm saying, right? It's like, yeah, it's just a funny example.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of newer games get away with it better, though, than older games. Because when we're talking about old games, it's always just clunky or jank. But sometimes, like I'm thinking of, for example, the Hollow Knight Silksong, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people were frustrated with the pogo. We talked about the pogo and we talked about frustrating stuff. But it's not... I feel like people are not saying that it's clunky. Actually, they're just saying that it's frustrating. So it's sort of this thing where when you look back on things, it's clunky, right? Because it's bad because they did that back then because they didn't know better, right? As opposed to any other reason. Whereas they can't have that argument against Silksong because Silksong just came out.
Yeah, I think part of it has to do with what you mentioned with like the what did you say? Like the input latency and unresponsiveness. Like the pogo in Hollow Knight Silksong is very responsive.
Right,
and
but
so
it's
I think
diagonal always, so it's...
Yes, but I think the reason why people don't call it clunky is because it is so responsive. Like it's super, super snappy, and like everything in Silksong is, right? It's like the most snappy and responsive game ever.
I mean,
and so I think that's why
in Vulgar is pretty responsive, I would say. It's just not controllable in the air, right?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Or like Ghosts and Goblins is the same, right? Where you jump, the character jumps. There's no delay. It's just like there's no weird acceleration or something. But
yeah, but I think like if Silksong had a fixed jump, people would call that clunky, right?
Yeah, probably.
So it's like I think it depends a lot on what it is.
Yeah.
And maybe the execution.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like Silksong is kind of weird, right? Because it is a good game, but it is also like super unclunky. So it's kind of the perfect counter example to our argument, right? Because everything in that game is super responsive and super snappy and everything. So it's kind of weird, but like, yeah.
But that is also a separate issue with a lot of newer games that they talk about this clunky and unresponsive stuff, but then they put on this massive, velocity curves on their movement with their lerping animation state stuff.
Yeah.
And the character takes 5 seconds to rotate or whatever. I'm not saying that's necessarily bad, but I feel like a lot of the time they don't do it for any useful reason, right?
Yeah, I think this is sort of similar to, I guess that's kind of what you said, but like animation lerping and whatever. Like all of that is done to make the game look more smooth and realistic or whatever.
I don't know, but it does not look more realistic if you slow it down a lot of the time.
Yeah. But like, because that's how movement works in real life, right? Is the argument? Because you don't run at a constant speed. You kind of speed up first and then you slow down a little
Marvel
bit.
Spider-Man gameplay again, lerping Spider-man.
Yeah,
it's very
it looks super shitty. Yeah.
But like the problem with that is that it feels like shit, right? And also like it looks like shit a lot of times. And I think the perfect example, we bring it up a lot of times. We have to bring it up today again. Because that's like actually bad clunkiness, and that's Dragon Age Inquisition. Holy crap, does the movement in that game feel bad? Now it's a pretty bad game overall, but like the inertia or acceleration or whatever you want to call it in that game is absolutely insane. I guess and it's so funny. Yeah, sorry. Like, it's so funny because like Dragon Age Origins, which is the first Dragon Age, right? Inquisition is the third. Dragon Age Origins is like the literal opposite. It's like if you press the right button, your character literally like pivots around the exact point. Like it looks super unnatural and super weird, but it feels very nice, right? Whereas in Dragon Age Inquisition, when you press the right button, your character like starts running in like 10-meter diameter circles because like the inertia and turning speed and stuff like that is so slow, and it feels absolutely terrible to move around in that game.
Yeah, but it looks
Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, I was gonna say that it doesn't. It's funny that they did it in that way because it's not even that relevant to that game, right? It's like a strategy game, and it's sort of half turn-based. It's not turn-based, but you pause and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not even. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't.
I mean, I think in a way that makes it a little bit less bad, because it doesn't actually matter that there's inertia. I think maybe that's why they did it so much in that game.
I mean,
because they're like,
I don't know. I don't think we play enough modern games. I think a lot of them do it pretty.
Probably like
the more expensive
God of War,
ones do it.
Yeah, the God of War games probably do a lot.
The mocap games especially.
Yeah, absolutely.
Terrible with that stuff.
Yeah. There is kind of what do you want to call it, like, because like a lot of this stuff is often very poorly done, right? And I think one game that does this pretty well is actually CS. I get to talk about CS again. I love talking about CS. So CS kind of has inertia. It's kind of weird because it's like actually a gameplay mechanic. So the way that CS works is that it has like a very small, like maybe half a second acceleration curve when you start moving, and then it has like a very small, like half a second acceleration curve when you stop moving. So it's like when you release the button, you don't stop instantly. You kind of move a bit and then you stop, and you slow down a bit and then you stop. And the thing about CS, right, is that with most weapons, when you're moving, you're very inaccurate. Sorry. Right, so it's like if you have an AK and you're walking while shooting, your bullets will literally spray like all across the screen, like not even close to the center. But there is like one cool trick, and it's called Counter-strafing. I'm teaching everyone about CS pro CS strats here. So basically, the way that CS works is that if, let's say you're walking to the right, when you let go of D. So you stop walking to the right. If you then press the opposite button, so if you press the left button, then that cancels the inertia. And so it becomes like a skill element or whatever, where it's like good players, they know how to cancel the inertia, so they can actually start shooting faster than a bad player, because they don't have to wait for the inertia to stop them completely, right? And so they can like start hitting accurately right away. And there's a very interesting consequence from this, because I could see someone arguing like, oh, well, what's the point then? Because a good player is just going to do that all the time, and so it isn't very interesting, right? And that's true, but there is one very interesting consequence of that, and that's that if you look at good CS players, when in combat, they very, very rarely move forward and back, right? They always move left and right, basically. Like if you look at good players play CS. And the reason for that is because counter-strafing with A and D, right? So if you let go of D and press down A at the same time, that's easy, right? And if you let go of A and press D at the same time, that's also easy, right? But if you're holding W, A, S, and D, right, you have one finger on A and D, but you only have one finger on W, right? You don't have the finger on S. And so you can technically counter-strafe forward and back, but people don't do it because you only have one finger for the forward and back buttons,
you could solve
right?
that pretty easily.
You could solve that, yes. But like, so there's like interesting gameplay consequences of that. And that's like kind of clunky, right? It sounds kind of stupid, but like, there's actually interesting gameplay implications on that, because that means that everyone is moving sideways in combat instead of forward and back, right?
But you would probably want that anyways, I think.
I mean, it depends on what weapon you have and stuff like that. But it makes it like, because that's like the number one, when I like teach new people to play CS or whatever, when I play with people who aren't very good at CS, like the number one thing I tell them to do is like stop pressing W in combat, and you'll like win automatically, right? Because it's like, it makes you so much more accurate. That's a bit of a...
I mean, it's even, I guess the accuracy penalty is not there, but Overwatch, right? That, like the movement stuff you do there is ridiculous, because I don't think... Man, I shouldn't talk about it when I don't know exactly how it works, but I think it's just... like there's no penalty for shooting when you move, right? And the movement is very... like there's no penalty in the movement. It's very, what's the right word? Like you can jump and that's not gonna cancel any. Like if you jump in CS, that's gonna cancel your momentum and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't have that. So like you can like jump, and obviously you don't want to jump because it gets harder to aim sometimes. But sometimes you might want to jump. But the point is, it's like super. Float is not the right word, but think of it like you're like a capsule, like just. You know, you just moving it around, and there's no penalty, so you want to strafe a lot there as well. And I would say you do more like sideways strafes right there as well. I guess same reason, but still useful. It's still useful even without that penalty, I guess. Yeah. So it's interesting.
Yeah. And so but there was a reason I wanted to bring up CS, by the way. That's related, right? The thing about CS is that there are a lot of things that are like the counter-strafing that I just explained. There are a lot of things that are like super unintuitive to a new player. It's like the recoil system in Counter-Strike is very unique in a way, right? Because you need to like a lot of games have recoil, but none of them have recoil like CS does it, right? Because you need to like aim down, like you need to do the 7 thing, you know, when you aim and stuff. And there's a bunch of stuff like that. That's like unlike any other game, right? And that's completely unintuitive. And I feel like when a lot of people play CS, they make a bunch of mistakes without realizing that they make a bunch of mistakes, right? So for example, the counter-strafing is a perfect thing. It's like when there are a lot of things in CS where it's like a new player will shoot or whatever, and then they'll move at the same time, and they won't understand why they missed so much, right? And I think if CS came out today, people wouldn't be very accepting of CS, right? Because everything is so unintuitive in that game. It's like you know, no, if I said, oh, there's this new game that has this counter-strafing mechanic, and I explained it to someone, they would be like, wow, that sounds super like overcomplicated and stupid. Why would they add that in the game? But like, since it's like legacy, I think people are way more accepting of it because it's actually interesting, right?
Well, stuff like I feel like stuff like that does exist, like not by design, but like for the same reason, right? You're adding momentum to left and then you click right, right?
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of games have that just by how they do the movement. But the recoil stuff for sure is not like that in most games.
Yeah.
Like the spread stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think...
And
what was I gonna say? The... Like, it's interesting because it is actually not intuitive. Like, it is just not intuitive, but the thing it creates is a complication in how shooting works in the game that makes the shooting in the game deeper.
Yeah.
Right? And that's sort of what these other things do as well, like jumping, right? Not being able to control the jump in the air.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said earlier, it might seem like, oh, I can control the jump, so now I can express myself more in the air or something. But no, what happens is there is more skill depth because you can't control it, right?
Yeah.
So the limitations of how the CS thing works with the spread is that you can't just take any weapon and shoot at anyone at any range and it just works easily, like you can in some shooters. Because they've optimized the like intuitiveness, right? The non-clunky mechanic to the point where it's really easy to execute, which might be fun for the beginners, but there's no depth if you do that. So
yeah, exactly. And so that's sort of like the point I wanted to make, that if kind of as I said before, like for like a new player won't understand anything that happens in CS. Like they won't understand why their shots miss. And like sure, it feels terrible and clunky or whatever, but like the reason that they don't understand why they miss is because the game is actually deep. And so it feels clunky. But when you know all of this stuff, like I know the counter-strafing stuff and all that, like to me CS feels very good. It feels very natural. It feels very snappy in a way. But like to a new player, it doesn't.
In a way, it is unintuitive, right?
Yeah.
That's sort of the point, because you need to learn it.
Yeah.
If you take is it unintuitive? I don't know. This is arguable, right? But we talked about getting over it, right? Oh, it's unintuitive to swing I mean, it technically maybe not actually, because it's kind of intuitive. Oh, look, this hammer moves when you move the mouse, right?
Yeah.
So,
I would say that getting over it is like more intuitive than the CS example.
Yeah, maybe.
Because it's like you can kind of you kind of get a feel for it quite quickly, right? Whereas in CS, like I know people who've played thousands of hours who don't know how to counter-strafe, and it's like in a way, like maybe it's just that like game developers should be better at explaining their mechanics, right? Maybe, but like in a way that sounds kind of bad, right? But also it's like kind of their own fault that they don't know how to play the game. I don't know.
Oh yeah. No, I don't.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can put in tutorials if you want or whatever. We talked about that before. Put in tutorials, right? You just look, if you do this it slows down and stuff happens. I'm like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
I mean, then there's the internet, right? People can just Google, how do I move in Counter-Strike? And then they can find a 3-hour long video, probably. I don't know, but I would guess about how to move in Counter-Strike. Yeah, so it's not, especially with a game like Counter-Strike that's so popular, right? Yeah. And like a similar thing is MOBAs, right? MOBAs also have a lot of clunky mechanics, I guess. I don't know. That's like maybe in a way more extreme example, because that's the entire gameplay loop is unintuitive. So you need to play like I mean, you need to play like a couple of 100 hours before you sort of get the feel for the flow. I don't know if you disagree, but
yeah. No, I agree.
Because it's super unintuitive. Like you're walking down this lane, right? And then like, okay, there's a tower there, but I'm not supposed to push the tower, right?
Yeah.
You're not supposed to push into the tower. That's bad. Yeah. So why am I doing this? Well, you need to level up. Okay, I need to level up, I guess, right? And then you kill the creeps. And then it's like, no, you can't kill them that fast because then they're closer to their tower. So now they get all the experience. It's like super dumb if you think about it, but it's really deep.
Yeah. Yeah, I think MOBAs are full of like weird stuff like that. But I think once again, it goes back to kind of what I was saying with like legacy stuff. It's because if MOBAs were invented today, nobody would play a MOBA. But since they are...
Maybe people would pick up on it, but the problem is no one would design it in that way.
Yeah, true.
It wouldn't be created in that way at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it would be seen as bad design.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's not even... I don't think they intentionally designed it that way, right? It's a mod from Warcraft 3 or something, Dota, right? So it's more a consequence of how that game works, and then... Yeah.
Exactly, and so there's like this big legacy of like mashups of games and mods, and then like Valve made their own version of it and whatever. So it's like there's this super complicated legacy, and like a lot of mechanics are like bugs, right?
Yeah.
Or unintended at least.
Yeah.
Which is often the case with deep games.
Yeah, a lot
at
of
least
them are
initially.
like, the engine doesn't. Like you'll have like, you can't die when you have this spell, but then there's this other spell that kills you instantly, and then that spell kills you because the code can't deal with the fact that spell stops it or whatever.
Yeah, because doesn't Dota have like there's something with turn speed or whatever?
Yeah, there's turn.
I don't remember exactly what. Yeah, and so like you need to like if you're good at the game, you can kind of micro with the turn rates like way more efficiently than someone that's good at the game.
Maybe. Yeah.
I don't know. I've heard someone who's good at Dota say that. So
that might be true.
So it's
I
like
haven't thought about it that deeply actually.
You know, compared to League of Legends, for example, where I'm not sure.
I guess if you're like if you do, like, we talked about the bad inertia circle, right? In Dragon Age. If you if you sort of do that, you can probably use the like. So like if you move, because your character turns, right? If you click down, like you click with your mouse, right, in a MOBA, then it's gonna turn like that and go. But if you click here, right, it's gonna start to move like that, right? Maybe that's the thing.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
Like you don't necessarily. I mean, maybe you turn faster. I don't fucking know. But
yeah,
there's a bunch of weird.
But
stuff.
then, anyways, my point was that that turn rate stuff probably isn't intentional from the developers, right? I don't think the developers went, wow, this turn rate thing is gonna be super interesting when good players learn how to utilize it. Or
yeah, no, it's just a mechanic in Warcraft.
They just designed the turning to be that way randomly in Warcraft, and then that was how Dota does it too, right?
Yeah, but a big point to not miss here is that this changed over time as well, right? So even the CS stuff you talked about.
Yeah.
These things we said about, oh no, you shouldn't push the lane and blah, 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 blah. I don't think people realized that immediately, right? So I don't even think that was a consideration when they made the mod.
No, yeah.
So that's something people figured out probably years later. I mean, maybe not that part, but there's parts that literally took like 5 to 10 years for people to figure out how to do. Or like there is pro strats that people did for 5-10 years, and then someone did something completely different, and then no one did the old thing, right? There's stuff like that where it's like, no, that's stupid to do, no one does it that way anymore, but pro people did it for like 10 years, right? And that sort of depth doesn't exist in newer stuff, because they try to make all the mechanics very intuitive, I guess.
Yeah, I think actually a funny example of that, in like early CS pro play, they didn't do eco rounds. They like always full bought, right? So for those of you that aren't familiar with CS, it's like there's this economy where you buy weapons and stuff, and one very common tactic nowadays, like even like the worst players know how this works in a way, right? It's like if you're very low on cash, you can kind of sacrifice one round to get some more cash so that you can buy fully the next round, right? And like pro CS players didn't really do eco rounds like in early CS:GO or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, which today is like even the most stupid noob knows how to do an eco round, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a bunch of interesting stuff like that, which comes from the game being deep.
Yeah.
And clunky, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There was one more thing that I wanted to bring up today, which is sort of related to clunky mechanics. And that's unconventional mechanics.
Yeah. I guess that's part of the getting over it stuff, I guess. It's back to point 1 that we mentioned earlier, sort of.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe not getting over it, because getting over it is kind of like, it's kind of,
I would say
it's a bit unconventional.
Yeah.
But anyways, the thing that I wanted to bring up is that a lot of people seem to be like very narrow-minded when it comes to unconventional mechanics, right? And so you said shit, spoiler alert. No, you said getting over it as an example, right? It's like, it's a platformer, yes, but instead of moving around like in a platformer, you're swinging a weird hammer around, and it's super weird and unconventional and whatever.
I feel like people might feel more open to this kind of stuff though than the other part.
Yes,
because there is a
definitely.
lot of games that do this, and people buy them. Like getting over it sold a lot, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, yeah, but it's also clunky, right? But I guess sort of, I think getting over it is a bad example. The example that I actually wanted to bring up was Braid, right, by Jonathan Blow.
But that's also
because Jonathan
popular.
Blow, yes, it's also very popular, right? So I'm not necessarily saying that like it's like they are. Well, it depends. Anyways, I'm gonna say my example, and then I'll make some big conclusion. So Jonathan Blow has a talk where he talks about like his experience making Braid or whatever, and like one of the parts of the talk, he talks about how like he tried finding an artist for the game, but no one understood the game. And so for those of you that haven't played Braid, it's like a 2D platform puzzle game where you can like rewind time unlimited, like you have unlimited time rewind, sorry. And so you kind of need to utilize that to solve the puzzle. So there'll maybe be like, there's a puzzle piece that isn't affected by time rewind, so you need to like go get the puzzle piece and then rewind time to like bring it up a ledge or whatever and stuff like that.
Keys.
And
I think I don't remember.
Keys. Yeah, there are puzzle pieces in the game also though. But anyway, he talked about like when he tried to find an artist, there were like several artists who didn't understand the game. I think there was one that was like, oh well, why doesn't this game have lives like in Super Mario or whatever?
It was something even worse. It was like, my 3-year-old could beat this or something.
Oh yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It was very like
yeah.
Basically saying that this game was easy because the combat in the game or whatever was easy, right?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
You could rewind. But that's not the point, right?
And so the person that said this, they saw that it was like a 2D platformer like Super Mario, right? And they went but then they saw that it didn't have all of, like, it wasn't actually Super Mario, right? Yeah. It's a very different game from Super Mario. It's a very, very different game. And so like, but that person didn't understand that, right? And I think in game design, there's a lot of parallels to be drawn there, I think, where it's like, people say that unconventional things are bad when they are just unconventional and misunderstood, sort of. And I think we mentioned it briefly earlier in the video, but I think one very good example of this is fixed cameras, right? Because remakes, like every remake of a game that had fixed camera makes it like a generic third-person camera, right? We mentioned that with Resident Evil and stuff like that. Well, does Resident Evil have fixed camera?
2
okay,
and
yeah.
1. And they didn't do. They do 2 and 3, I think. Yeah. They have fixed
but
camera.
I think like the Metal Gear remakes changed that as well, right? And stuff like that. And like, of course, fixed camera wasn't an unconventional mechanic at the time, right? Yeah. A lot of games did that. But nowadays, fixed camera is unconventional, right? Yeah. And so
when the people who remake these games, they see that camera and they say, wow, this is unconventional, this isn't how we do it nowadays, so let's change it to how we do it nowadays. And the problem with that is that it becomes a completely different game, as we discussed, right? And so, sort of, I guess my main point is that, like, gamers are kind of narrow-minded in a way, because they see something that's unconventional and they say this is bad without understanding it. Yeah.
And it's the more out there things, right? Because we've talked about the novelty design stuff, right? And that's separate from this, to be very clear, right?
Yeah.
Because this mindset brings you to the conclusion that, oh, you make Dark Souls, but there is 2 parallel universes and you can swap between them. Oh, how interesting. I'm not. Yeah. There's definitely not a game that does that.
No.
Which, funny enough, that's like the game itself is actually pretty decent. Like, it's one of the better Souls likes, but
which one is it?
Lords of the Fallen, the new Lords.
Oh,
of the
yeah.
Fallen, It's a very competent Dark Souls clone, right? But the mechanic is actually the worst parts of the game, the gimmick.
Yeah.
And that kind of gimmick is not interesting. But, like, let's say we did that game did the braid thing, right? You can rewind time. And that's how they do the universes or something. That's super stupid, right? But the scary thing with that people, like the designers don't like and the gamers don't like, is that it becomes a very completely different game, right? Like you said with Braid, it's Super Mario but with rewind, okay? But that's not Super Mario, right? That's a completely different game. And that would happen with this as well. And I think that's sort of the issue with this like gimmicky design things, where they want to keep the identity, but they want a novelty gimmick, right? And you need to be not scared of where you end up with the design, right? And this is very hard, to be clear. Like, I think we discussed, there was some I don't remember where we saw the discussion where there was someone talking about that people should basically make clones, right? When they start out. And I agree with that, because you need to learn, like, this kind of design that, for example, Jonathan Blow does. You need some experience to do that well, right? Because if you try to do that when you're new, you end up with the Lords of the Fallen thing, right? Where you click a button and the mechanic is completely pointless and it should just be removed. So that's the point. That and to be clear, clones is a very mean way to say it. I mean, you should just try to make good versions of things, I guess. Like, look at genre you like and try to make something good there, and don't try to, like, invent a genre or whatever, right? I guess. Especially since there's a lot of it. This is like, with the money and stuff as well, right? There is more, like, it's safer as well from that perspective, because you don't need to, like, you can get really good at making, whatever you're making. Like, you're making Souls likes or something. Sure, if you because you have examples to study, so you can just study them and make, I don't know where I'm going, but I think you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. There was one thing you briefly mentioned that I think is actually really interesting now that I think more about it. You talked about how, like, gimmicks are often very safe, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's super interesting, because, like, the most common gimmick is the genre blend, right? It's like, because we have a video about this. What was our example? It was like Stardew Valley, but it's a third-person shooter or something like that.
It was Stardew Valley and Final Fight, I think. Balatro.
Whatever, doesn't matter.
You probably made that kind of example more than once. Let's be real. We're thinking different examples. Definitely did Balatro.
And something.
No, Balatro Final Fight we definitely did.
Yeah. And so I think it's pretty interesting, because you mentioned that, like, all the gimmicks are safe, and, like, the number one gimmick that everyone does is the genre blend. And I think it's very interesting that you said that, because, like, that's like, because there's so much what do you want to call it, like, legacy skill there, right? It's like, if I take deck builders and I take third-person shooters and I mash them up into one, like people know what a deck builder is, people know what a third-person shooter is, and so like me mashing them up isn't gonna be very like unconventional, right? It's very someone who has played like I don't know how to say this, like it would be there wouldn't be anything unintuitive in the blend, sort of. Do you get what I'm saying?
No, it would be just too bad. Like, you would take Dark Souls and Stardew Valley, and you could, like, my favorite example. Oh, I'm gonna make people mad. Are you ready? I'm gonna take a real example here. Oh my god, there's gonna be hate comments now. Are you ready? Total War. That's, in my opinion, a genre blend, and it's a terrible genre blend. It's a genre blend between real-time strategy and grand strategy, right? Or whatever you want to call it, like turn-based strategy on a map, whatever. Right? Yeah. And the problem with that game is that both suffer because of the other, right? Yeah. So I would rather, in some of them, you would rather want to play the good version of the RTS, and in some of them, you would want to play the good version of the strategy part. Yeah. But it's never a good blend, and it's always terrible late game because you're just either sometimes it's like, oh, you need to do a battle, but you don't want to because you want to do the strategy thing, or like, oh no, you don't need to do any battles, but you want to do battles, but it's just a waste of time to do battles because you can auto resolve them and win. Your arm is all exactly. Sucks. Yeah. It's such a bad game. I don't understand why people like it. Yeah,
I 100% agree. I think it's so weird that. Because in like strategy game design communities or whatever, there barely is one, but right, but like when people discuss game design in strategy game communities, I guess, like there seems to be like people aren't aware of this at all. Like, because they always say, oh yeah, I really wanna, because I play a bit of Paradox games, right? And there are so many people who say, "Oh, I wish we could like mash up a Paradox game with Total War, so you could play the battles and stuff like that." And it's like, no, you don't want to do that because because the interesting part of a Paradox game is like this strategy. If it's a good Paradox game like EU4, and not like Hearts of Iron or whatever, but like the good part of EU4 is that it's like super deep and interesting, and like if I can cheese the battle to win the battle against the odds, then that completely ruins the strategy part of it. Yeah. And that's like exactly the thing that Total War suffers from, right? Yeah. And it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I thought of a thing there that's worth bringing up, which is back in the day when I went to gamer school. Or like I had the courses in that stuff. They always talked about something called I was thinking of it and now I don't remember the word. What is it called? It's called unique selling point, right? And that's one of the most. Maybe I shouldn't say one of the most. It frustrates me, right? Because it's a very, very bad way to sell a game. I mean, I get what they're trying to say. They're trying to say, oh, you need something unique so you can sell the game, right? But if you do that, if you say, oh, unique selling point, then you end up with this stuff like Total War meets EU4 or something. Yeah. Right? And then, we can sell that, right? It's sort of this thing that you can use to tell people that are not interested how to be interested. But the problem is, if you're... Like if you want, let's say you want to make an RTS, right? And then someone tells you, oh, what's unique about your RTS, right? Let's say we I said before, newer designers should focus on making things they are interested in, like that they have, like we've said before, designers are not gamers, right? So they need to play more games first, so they have taste, and then they can apply their they like the thing you want. Oh my god, I'm rambling. The thing you want is, oh, I really like game X, but these things, what happens if I change these things, like small things, not big things, and then like that's how you build and become a good designer, in my opinion, right? There is obviously other ways, like you can do more experimental things, but I think this is a good way to do it. And the thing with those minor things is that's not Stardew Valley meets Final Fight, right? That's like very minor things, right? But like we talked about before, these minor things, if there is a lot of clunky depth, adds up, so it becomes actually quite a different game to someone that's skilled at that game. And you see that very clearly on stuff like Dota and League of Legends, for example. If you look at them surface level, they are just MOBAs, and you just pick a hero, and there's 3 lanes, and there are 5, they're the same game. There's no difference. But if you played both of them for like 1,000 hours, they are not the same game. Not at all. Not even a little bit the same. But you can't tell that to someone that hasn't spent 1,000 hours in them, because it does like looking at them, they're identical.
Yeah.
But they're not even close to the same game, right?
Yeah.
And you could apply, I think this is more people understand this because more people play shooters. I mean, MOBA people play MOBAs, I guess. But MOBAs, it's sort of interesting. Only MOBA people play MOBAs, and then no one, right? They don't, I don't know, maybe it's the same with FPS. Maybe FPS is just more popular. But I don't know if that's true.
What do you mean?
No, I was going to say that it's the same with CS, right? If you give CS and Call of Duty to someone, they're not gonna, like, if they're not playing shooters, that's the same game, right? What do you mean it's different? Like, you're playing Search and Destroy in Call of Duty and playing Counter-Strike, it's the same game. I mean, obviously you're gonna say, I mean, because you played...
Yeah, true, but like, I think they are at least a bit more, like, initially visually different, or whatever you wanna call it. Because, like,
I don't know,
for example, in Call of Duty you can run.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but in Call of Duty you can run and you can't in CS. So, like, that's like a very obvious thing that someone can point out.
You can use Flash in whatever the game is called.
I think you can in Call of Duty too, right? But they.
No, I mean in League of Legends, the teleport.
Okay.
Like, you have a bunch of weird abilities in your teleport and stuff. Yeah, and your character doesn't turn, and like you see, you can't eat trees. They're like all these things add up, right? And it becomes a different game. That's sort of the point here, right? That if you shave that off and you go like, no, this is how you streamline all these things, and like this is how you make a good thing, then it becomes super uninteresting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that was relevant to the topic, but anyways.
Yeah. I guess. There was one final thing I wanted to talk about, kind of bringing us back to unconventional mechanics here, because we went a bit off topic as per usual. And I sort of hinted at it accidentally earlier, but that's Baby Steps. Baby Steps is Bennett for this newest game, right? The same developer who made Getting Over It. And I think we both agree that we didn't really like Baby Steps, right?
I would give it points for trying things.
Yes.
I would say.
But like, the thing that I find interesting about...
I mean, I did play it is one thing, right?
Yeah.
Which is, you can say more, there is other games that people say are the game of the year, for example, that, I would rather play Baby Steps than a lot of them.
Yes, absolutely. But the problem... So, for those of you that don't know what Baby Steps is, it's basically a game where which has an unconventional walking mechanic, right? So instead of pressing W to walk, you like press right mouse button to raise your right leg, and then you press W to move it forward, and then you press it again to drop the leg, and then you press the left, and then you so on and so on, right? And now the thing about that game is that it isn't very, like, it's kind of easy, right?
I think it's like there is definitely puzzles in that game that are hard to do with the mechanics, but the mechanics itself is
exactly
not the hardest thing.
Yeah. So it's kind of not like Getting Over It, right? Where it's like it's very clunky and unintuitive and whatever. It's like the movement in Baby Steps is kind of, it's clunky, but it's not intuitive in a way, right? It's like it's because it's like basically what I'm trying to say is that it's kind of tedious, right? It's like
but that's because there's not enough challenge around.
Exactly.
It's not necessarily the mechanic, I think. It's that it's just like you could make an analogy to Getting Over It and say, what if there was like 100 meter of ground you needed to move over?
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah, just like flat ground.
Yeah.
Instead of putting like a big ass tree in the first 10
Yeah,
seconds, there's just flat ground. Yeah,
And
that's kind of what
sort of
baby
the
steps
issue,
did.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, the point I wanted to make is not that Baby Steps isn't a very good game. The point I wanted to make is that when I see reviews for that game and when I see people talk about that game, people talk about that game as if it's like as hard as Getting Over It, which I think is kind of weird because it seems like people just say that the game is difficult because it's very unconventional, right? It's like they compare it to walking in another game and like, yeah, sure, compared to walking in Call of Duty, walking in Baby Steps is kind of hard, right? But it's not actually hard. It's just like you just need to do it. Like if you take your time, it's kind of easy, right? It's just way slower and you need to be a bit more careful. But like, because it's unconventional, it feels like people go like, oh wow, this is so insanely hard, this is so brutal and whatever. And like maybe it's a bit because it's Bennett Foddy and like his name is popular among that kind of gameplay, right? Because he's done co-op and Getting Over It and all that. But I feel like a bit of it is at least that like simply because the mechanic is unconventional, people like overestimate it kind of.
I think there are hard parts in those games though. Like in
yeah,
Baby
absolutely,
Steps,
absolutely.
I think maybe if you do the hardest puzzles, they might. I shouldn't say puzzles, but jumping puzzles, whatever. Yeah. Walking puzzles. Yeah. They are probably very hard. I have no doubt. But the problem is it's very tedious to get there. I don't think I would like Getting Over It as much if there was 100 meters of ground between every hard jumping section. And then falling down. So the thing we talked about that is nice about Getting Over It, which is, you fall down and you have to redo a section. You have to do a hard section, right? Or whatever. I mean, it's not hard. And it takes, like you said, 15 minutes to get from the bottom to the top. But the problem with Baby Steps is if you fall down in Baby Steps, first of all, in a lot of places, it's not that hard to fall down. But if you, for some reason, fall down, it might be 15 minutes of walking to get back to where you were.
Yeah.
Not because it's hard or because you can't do it in one go, but because, or you can do it in one go, right? It just takes that long to walk. Yeah. And that's a big issue to me because that's that is sort of getting to the point where it's wasting my time, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Cool.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you wanted to say, or
no? It's time
to
end this year.
Yes, this year. Well, maybe not, right?
No, it's because the end of this year.
Well, true. Okay, I won't spoil anything.
Wait,
no surprise. Yes, surprises.
Yeah,
surprises. Now it's not a surprise because we've spoiled it. Whatever. Thanks everyone for listening and watching, and as usual, don't forget to leave a like if you agree or a dislike if you disagree, and leave a comment. Subscribe. Yes. Don't ring the bell because notifications are annoying.
I don't know. Okay, off-topic rant here. I never understood the bell thing. What I look in subs. My subs are there. Why do you need the bell? I don't get it.
I don't get it either.
Yeah. Maybe we should.
Whatever.
Maybe it is useful, and we should look it up.
Yeah, maybe try ringing the bell so we can see if
ring
it
the bell on our video and tell us what it does next week too, so we know.
But yeah, thanks everyone for
this year.
Watching. Yes, this year. No surprises. Don't.
No surprises.
No surprises. I won't say anything more. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye bye.